Hi, I'm Pam Rose, and my favorite things are How Did This Get Made, Jason Mantzoukas, and everything those two things have brought into my life.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones. I'm about to be joined on the microphone by my beloved old man kitty, Spidey, who just has got to be in the action today. It is Easter for many of you. For other people, you're in the final days of Passover, about to put the matzah away for the year and go back to leavened bread and leavened products. I hope no matter what holiday you are celebrating this spring that you are finding it meaningful. I have had it's been a nice weekend, a nice week. I got Spidey, you're losing your mind. You're losing your mind, baby. This week I've had kind of two pop culture discoveries that go just hand in hand. One is not actually this from this weekend, but they're on Paramount Plus, which is one of the gajillion streaming products out there. MTV is showing a real-world reunion of the original cast of The Real World New York. They were the cast in 1992, and they got the same loft back for them, and they've all come together. And if you haven't watched it, get on board and start watching it again, or start watching it. It is incredible to realize how prescient Kevin Powell was. He was kind of framed as the angry black man on The Real World New York, and that has become a trope in reality TV. But when you watch it, it was recorded this winter, I think, and they're, and during their season in 1992 was the Rodney King verdict. During this season, they're recording at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement in America. Well, not the height, but recording during this year of protests. And it is just tremendous to watch things come full circle. So that's the Real World reunion for the New York season. And then I just found a new podcast that is fairly new. It's maybe a dozen episodes so far, called Listen to Sassy. And the three hosts they take 2 or 3 episodes to read through a month of Sassy magazine starting in 1988. One of the hosts has copies of all of the magazines from 88 to 94, which were the good years of Sassy. And it is a blast of Gen X nostalgia. So if you grew up on Sassy magazine and want to revisit it, this podcast is the way to do so. So those are my kind of discoveries this week. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Pam Rose. Pam and I know each other from the How Did This Get Made fan community. We see each other on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, all the places. And on Friday afternoon, I still didn't really have a plan for today's podcast, and I posted an open invitation, which is exciting because not only was Pam feeling spontaneous and able to join me for this, but I've booked someone I know from SAP who's going to come and talk about New Kids on the Block. My former boss and current good friend, former boss, Phil Gomes is going to come to talk about heavy metal music. My friend Aaron Gadiel is going to come on. He hasn't picked a topic yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we talk about fish. So that's exciting. I'm always looking for people who want to come on and talk about their favorite thing. If you're a friend of mine and think you haven't been invited, it's because I think I invited you. So please let me know if you're a listener and want to record an episode with me. And it's at the end of the episode, but if you want to follow the podcast on Twitter, it's Finding Faves Pod. You can follow me, Chicago Leah, on Twitter, Shy Leah on Instagram. The podcast automatically posts to YouTube. So that way you can get closed captioning if you would like, if you know anyone who wants to read that is helpful for. I'm still working on figuring out transcripts. That's something I need to put some energy towards working on. I know it's important for accessibility. But if you could head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review Finding Favorites, that would be fantastic. I would appreciate it. And that's all I got for today. There are, the race of vaccination distribution and the variants of COVID variants. I'm still doing what I can to stay home, stay safe, wear a mask, and wash my hands. Enjoy this interview with Pam Rose. Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is the podcast where we find out about people's favorite things without using an algorithm. This week, I am so excited, and I say that every week, and every week it's true. But at the core of this podcast, at the core of Finding Favorites, is the podcast, How Did This Get Made? Because through How Did This Get Made, I got into all sorts of podcasts. And I've met all sorts of people, including today's guest. Pam Rose is with us today. Pam and I know each other through the How Did This Get Made fan community. We have competed for the love of a man on Paul Scheer's Twitch show on a dating game. And both of us lost miserably. I don't think we've met each other in real life, but we talk online so much that I think we have. So Pam is an amateur puppeteer, a lover of evil clowns. And how are you doing today, Pam?
Good. How are you? I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad we're feeling spontaneous.
Yes.
Where in the world are you?
I live in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island. I've seen some East Coast friends today talking about snow. Did you get snow today?
No, but it was unusually cold today. It's been warming up in spring weather, but we avoided that snow, thankfully.
Oof. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful in Chicago today. I took a friend to the airport this morning and then was like, I'm going to drive home from the airport on city streets. So it took me hours to get home. Because I just didn't want to get on the highway and it was sunny and I don't know, I had the day off and that's what I did with my day. So how is this, we're now a year into the COVID pause and it's hit us all in different ways, but I'm curious is your corner of Rhode Island starting to open back up? Are things?
No, we are still mask mandate.
Yeah.
And it's still limited capacity at things. Things have opened up to bigger capacities, but nothing is 100% still.
Yeah.
So that's good. And we're doing pretty well with vaccinations.
That's great.
As a whole.
Yeah. I, a few weeks ago, drove 4 hours down to Springfield, Illinois to get my vaccine because they are so hard to come by in Chicago. And I have a car and I was like, I'm going to use my car privilege and drive out of the city to get my shot so that people who live in the city who have less access to transportation, that is, you're listening to how I felt okay about that.
See, if I drove 4 hours to get one, I'd be in upstate New York.
Oh my gosh.
Nothing is further than 45 minutes in Rhode Island.
It's amazing. I don't think have I been to Rhode Island? I've been to Delaware, which is close. No.
Delaware's been to Boston. We're closer.
I have been to Boston, yes.
Yeah, I'm about an hour south of Boston.
Okay.
So that's where I see all my How Did This Get Made shows when they come to town.
That is awesome.
Or I go to LA, because that's easy. Just fly to Los Angeles.
I have also gone to see them at Largo once. I saw Space Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow at Largo. Which ones did you see in LA?
I did not go to Largo. I actually was front row center for Drop Dead Fred.
You were?
And I saw Deadfall.
Wow. Was Drop Dead Fred, what was it like live?
It was amazing. And I knew watching it, like, this is going to be a classic episode. And I remember coming on the boards after and saying, just wait until this episode comes out, because I didn't want to give anything away.
Yeah. Because it is truly Drop Dead Fred. Casey Wilson was the guest. Or was it Jessica Singh? It was Casey.
It was Casey.
And it's created some of the best ongoing memes and bits. Team Fred, Team Sanity. Did people in the audience still have a voice at the end of that show? Because it was a screamy audience, like cheery, loud. It felt loud.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was by myself, so I didn't have anyone to, talk to see for how it. I was dressed like Jason in the front row, my white shirt and jeans. But it was funny because then a couple weeks later they came to Boston and I went to 2 shows there, and Drop Dead Fred had not dropped. The episode hadn't come out yet, but I wore a Drop Dead Fred t-shirt for the meet and greet. And Paul, the first thing he noticed was like, is that a Drop Dead Fred shirt?
Oh, that's awesome.
I thought I was at your show, and they were all excited about it.
That is so fun. Well, let's go ahead and get into it because we're veering that way.
Yes.
So when we were texting, you were like, I like, how did this get made? We share a love of Jason Mantzoukas.
Yes.
And you also love movie watching. And so let's start with, how did this get made? I'm curious, how did you find it for the first time? Or how were you introduced?
I came into it a little late in the game. I was introduced by an ex-boyfriend. And he used to listen to it when he went to bed.
Uh-huh.
But I need silence when I sleep, so I wouldn't allow it. He kept saying, I think you would like this show, because he watched The League.
Okay.
And it was at a point where he was very annoying to me. So I didn't listen to it out of spite at that time.
It's fair.
I knew of it, but it sounded like something I would like. So then after we broke up shortly thereafter. And then several months later, I finally got back to it, listened to a few, liked it, and then kind of forgot about it. And then I went back to it, and then that was it. I was obsessed and listened to every single one after that.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a few people into it. And I've listened to some of them multiple times. I will re-listen all the time. But yeah, I would have gotten to it earlier had my boyfriend not been so annoying.
Yeah. Were you did you have a bunch of podcasts in rotation?
No.
Or this was
I was not a podcast listener at that time at all.
Because I think that is underappreciated, is that like the podcast that gets you over the hump. Because I had, for years before I listened to How Did This Get Made, all my friends who got into podcasts before me would be at dinner and they'd be like, oh, well, I heard on this podcast. Leah, what podcast are you? I'm like, I can't be bothered. How do you put a podcast on your phone? And I've got to wear headphones. I was like, it's too much. I can't.
Although, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I did listen to the Nerdist podcast sometimes because I was a big, huge Chris Hardwick fan.
Yeah.
Before,
Yeah. Before. And what was it in your boyfriend at the time and what was it about How Did This Get Made that he thought made it a podcast that Pam would like?
Because he knew that I like bad movies. Like we'd gone to see some live shows of The Room together.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So I started off just listening to ones of movies that I had seen.
Okay.
And then I ventured into the other ones, dipped my toe into those, and that's when I started discovering Jason. And then because I knew who Jason was just from seeing him on his guest shows, on various TV shows.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until you hear what he's really like, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, I think he's someone that if you, I've said this in a few different places, because I'll put in my dating apps that Jason Mantzoukas is like my favorite. He's like my number one celebrity crush. And guys who respond with something about Rafi, I'm like, nope. If that's what you know about Jason Mantzoukas, you are not for me.
I also put that like in one of my like the questions of if I could hang out with someone or I always put Jason Mantzoukas and see if I get any kinds of response. And sometimes I will put up a picture of me with Greg Sestero to see if anyone picks up on who it is, because then I'll know that that's my person.
Yeah, because Greg Sestero was in the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know him a little bit just from the room stuff, and so I told him that, and he thought it was the funniest thing that I used that to try and lure in the right kind of people.
Yeah, it's like in DC, everybody has like the different politicians that they post with, and in the podcast community or the fan community, it's like, what meet and greet did you go to, or where were you? And so yeah, I did also put up my picture from the Chicago show when I made my "Don't Touch Zooks" shirt and I stood guard. Like, I've put that picture on my dating app before too.
And then not as sneeze or cough near him.
Yes. I felt terrible. I had gone to a doctor that week because I had this like lingering cough and it wouldn't go away. And when Paul said, because I tweeted him the picture and I was like, if you need, I'll be sitting in the orchestra if you need a guard during Second Opinions. And so as Second Opinions is starting and he says on the microphone at the Chicago theater, sold out, 3,000 person theater, is Leah here? And I was like, oh, I'm here. And I stood up and he saw the front of my shirt and he was like, no, you're the wrong one. And I turned around. He's like, yes, get up on stage. And I just kind of looked around and I was like, I can't, the stairs are so far away from me. Like, I'm going to have to, I can't handle squeezing through 50 auditorium seats. And so I was 4 rows back and I just went up to the front and I jumped on stage. Like, I climbed on someone's chair and I jumped. So it wasn't a jump so much as like a clamber on stage. And by the time I got to Jason, I was coughing from the exertion of like adrenaline and jumping on stage. So I get over there, I stand guard, I start coughing, and he looks at Paul and he was like, no. And so then like Paul moves me like 6 more feet away from him. And June says, where's my t-shirt? Just because nobody's up here guarding me doesn't mean you guys can touch me either. So I felt like it was a good bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had my ongoing bit with him from the first show I went to was Second Sight in Boston.
Yeah.
And I had a shirt on that said I Heart Jason. I had I had it made on Zazzle or something like that. So as soon as they had, for the questions, I had my hand up and I was towards the front. So Paul came right over to me first.
Nice.
And he said, she's wearing I Heart Jason shirt. And it was St. Clair was the guest. June wasn't there.
Okay.
And Jason was like, this is concerning. So we had to, the bit before you ask your question was your name, and then you had to act out the voice that Bronson Pinchot turns into, which is like this old Italian man.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked it in that voice, and Jason said, boom, first out of the gate, crushing it. He's like, great job, Pam. I love you too. So that was, and his parents were in the audience.
Right.
So when they had the mini-sode for the 200th episode, like you could call in with your favorite memories. I called in and said, that was my favorite memory. I said, he said he loved me in front of his parents, so we are probably engaged because of some kind of Greek thing. And Jason was there. I did not know he would be on the mini-sode.
Right, because before COVID, he never did the minis.
Yeah, so Paul said, is this your wife? You have news? He said, yes, we are engaged because of a Greek thing, huge news. So that just made me laugh so hard.
I love those. I love that they are still seem able to track us, like they're fans.
Yes.
across those like touch points.
And I attribute a lot of that to Paul.
Absolutely. When I went to those Chicago shows and I went to the meet and greet, the one I got, because I was clicking so fast and not paying attention, was just to see June and get a copy of the book.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Not the one to meet all three of them. But Nicole Byer had been talking about on Why Won't You Date Me that like over emotional fans during meet and greets can be really stressful. And she was like, just write me a note. If you've got something big to tell me, write it down. And so like I took that to heart and I wrote Jason, June, and Paul each a thank you note, like about what their aspect of the show meant to me. And to Paul, I was like, I recognize you're the quarterback. Like without Paul, there's no podcast.
Right.
And there's no fan community, right? Like they would, like he truly drives it. And I think that's tremendous.
Yeah, it's like that recent one when he didn't do the intro and they were all thrown off.
That was amazing. It was so good. Okay, so you start listening to it. You give it you try 3 episodes, you go away, you come back.
Mm-hmm.
And how long is it between like when you're diving in more and you're able to catch your first live show?
Probably 6 months.
Oh, nice.
It was 2017 is when, like early 2017 is when I started listening hardcore.
Yeah, nice. And so was it Boston shows then you saw first?
Yeah, I saw that was the Second Sight one. And that I'm like, I'll just get the one show because they had 2 shows that night. Yeah. And I regretted it when I was leaving. I'm like, what am I doing? So then after that, when I did the other ones, it was the 2 in LA, and then I did the 2 in Boston a couple weeks later and that's where I got to do the meet and greet. And that was for the Great Wall and Underworld Blood Wars.
Okay. And that Boston show, that was during their like massive 2019 tour, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was when June told the story about the person on the train tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just very loopy.
Yeah.
It was emotional support for the person. She wanted to be there for emotional support.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of good stuff cut out of some of those. I was glad they put some of it in the mini because it was really good.
Yeah, I'm glad too that they use more especially for the live shows, using those minis to revisit the things that have to get cut out. Because I went to, they had a Chicago, it must have been summer of 2018. They came to Chicago. It was during the Onions Comedy Festival, I think, or the AV Club. I think they had one show and it sold out in 30 seconds. And then they added another show and that sold out. And then they added 2 more shows the next night. So it was a 4-show weekend. And of those, I think I went to 3 of the 4 shows, maybe just 2. And like, I've never gone to a live show with, I'm trying to think, only at Largo did I buy 2 tickets and like drag a friend with me, because I'd read enough about the line system and the seating system. And it just Largo seemed stressful. So it's
like first come, first serve there, right?
Yeah. It's first come, first serve, but you line up at like 5 p.m. to get your seat number, and then you go to dinner, and then you come back for your show.
Oh, okay.
And then they had one show that was early. One line was early show and late show, or like if you're going to both the early show or both shows, get in this line. If you're only going to the late show, get in this line. But I think I wound up on the 3rd or 4th row on the aisle for that one, and had a shirt custom designed by Paul in our group. A shirt that I had tried to design for myself, but I don't have Photoshop. So it was a How Did This Get Made for Dummies shirt that I had like Jason put on the front. And it was like a very complicated custom shirt, like too much going on. But when Paul was doing questions, he like stopped by and he was like, whoa, like, where did you get that shirt? And Jason was like, wait, people are like making their own shirts now. What's going on? So that was like a fun interaction and a good.
Yeah, I think 3 out of the 5 shows I've gone to, I ended up in the front row because I am like as soon as those tickets go on sale, I'm a master. But a couple times, 2 of the times I did have somebody with me, but one time I was by myself.
Yeah.
I think it's easier if you're by yourself to get a better seat.
So much easier.
I do have, I won an auction pre-COVID, 2 free tickets and backstage passes for a show, and I was supposed to go March 22nd of last year in LA.
Yeah.
So I still have that for whenever. I don't know if they'll be doing meet and greets, but
I don't know if Jason will ever do it a meet and greet.
And that's who I bought it for.
Right.
Because I don't like my picture. I want a different picture with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Paul and June will do meet and greets again, but I don't know.
I will bring my vaccination card.
Right.
Hold it up.
Right. I'll wear a mask. I'll wear a face shield. I will.
No. I just want him to get vaccinated. Like, I feel like he should get pushed up and just, please.
He really should.
Hashtag vaccinate Mantzoukas.
Yeah, I worry about that live show that was on his birthday. I was like, oh, Paul and June and St. Clair are really worried about him.
Yes.
When they got like all the different cameos and videos and trying to make it extra special, I was like, these are 3 friends very worried about their 4th buddy.
Yeah.
Is how it felt.
Yeah. I hope they do another live show soon.
I hope so too.
I did sneak in second opinions on the first 2, but I'm not going to do it again.
So you got one for Cats and you got one for Night Before Christmas?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the night before Christmas, I was the Nutcracker doing a different voice because I didn't want them to know it was me again.
I didn't know it was you. So
I sent it from a different email address. I'm like, I always puppet Nutcrackers, so
right.
And he wouldn't have my voice. It would be a man's voice. So,
oh, so good. I will make sure that I link to those shows and that I link to the dating show that we did on Paul's Twitch show.
I was so nerve-wracking, but it was so fun.
It was so fun. It was, I was glad we were wearing masks.
Yes.
Because you had your Burger King mask on and I had my cat mask that I made that night.
That mask was amazing. I could just see you laughing the whole time, just shaking.
I didn't totally think through, like, I probably could have stabilized it in some way and, like, actually just sat behind it, but it was I had taped it to a poster tube.
Oh, was that what it was?
Yeah, it was taped to a poster tube or, like, gift wrap or something. So it was just, like, very, very rudimentary, I think is fair to say. And when did you find your way to the fan group that we're in?
It was pretty early on.
Yeah.
Once I started getting into it, it was in 2017, definitely. I was in it because it was before I went to that live show. I was in it. Yeah, but I wasn't as active. I don't know. I was in it. That's pretty much the reason I'm still on Facebook right now. One of the main reasons I use Facebook.
Yeah, I would say my podcast fan groups are really are sustaining reasons to stay there. Yeah. And now with, hanging with Paul Scheer with the Discord, and I joined the Doughboys Discord, I'm like, oh, well, my podcast fandom, like a lot of it's happening on Discord now. So it's getting even more easy. It's getting easier to imagine quitting Facebook. Yeah.
And I like that they moved the How'd This Get Made one from Earwolf because I could never get the forums to work right to comment on there.
Yeah.
So I do like that.
Yeah, I was glad that they got people to move over. Because I would sometimes look at the Reddit. It was interesting because I don't remember what made me say, I need to find a group where people are talking about this podcast. I'm sure I could go search the group and try and piece together my origin story, because I wasn't in the original. I wasn't like active on the Reddit thread or the Earwolf forums and found them too toxic and went looking for somewhere else. It was just the first place I found people talking about how did this get made, and I didn't know what an Aileen was, but I was like,
I didn't either. I was just looking to be kept up to date on what movies were coming out and what Jason was doing and things like that.
Yeah. One of the things I love about the group is I love a lot of things about this Facebook group, but when the live show came through Chicago, like 12 to 20 of us, 15 to 20 of us got together for dinner before the early show. And that was, we picked a cafeteria caddy corner from the theater and wore our theme shirts, and the Pritchards were there in their Space Jam shirts, and I was wearing my Don't Touch Zook shirt, and we just kind of yelled Geostorm as people walked by, and if they knew what it meant, then they joined us. And it was so fun to get to meet people in person. And then Jeff Maher was there, who had been in my Secret Santa exchange that year, and
I had him this year.
Oh, he's an excellent recipient of Christmas gifts, of holiday gifts.
Yeah.
Have you met anyone offline from our world?
Only at one of the Boston shows, the one where I did the meet and greet, I didn't notice anybody. And then I saw, I was scrolling through Facebook between shows.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture of these people that I'd just seen in line with me, and they were like a few seats over. And I went up to the girl, I'm like, is this you? And it was someone and she went, Pam.
Oh, that's fun.
But no, I haven't. But I keep telling the people in the movie watch portion of it that we need to have like a little convention post-COVID to get together.
Yeah. So
there's only one that lives close by.
How did the movie watching came out of, from my point of view, and you'll tell me how much of this is wrong. It was kind of like early COVID. We're all home. And I remember one member of our group in particular saying, hey, I'm going through a hard time. Does anybody want to watch a movie on Friday night? I think at that point there had been a couple live watches here or there.
I think they used to watch the movies that were going to be covered.
Okay. So it was
That's
once every 2 weeks we'll watch the movie together.
Yeah.
And now there's a weekly schedule and a whole Discord, because everybody's jokes kept getting people kicked off of Facebook, according to the Facebook algorithm. But tell me about the movie watching community within our community.
Yeah, I came into it a little late myself, but I kept seeing it happening. And then one night I decided, oh, this is a fun movie. I'm going to watch this with the group. And just the comments and the gifs that go back and forth are so funny. So you just start the movie all at the same time, and it's just a live comment thread. And It's wild. And now they do 2 movies a night, pretty much every night, except for Sundays is the day of rest. And then Monday, some people are watching Felicity. They had watched some J.J. Abrams, but then there's an alternative movie and there's just one movie for the others that aren't watching that. But yeah, you submit your suggestions. Some people still haven't lived down a lot of theirs, me included. But
what are some that you feel like you haven't lived down?
The Baby.
The Baby. I've never even heard of it.
And I found that from someone in the group just suggesting it a couple of years ago. And I said, the movie looks crazy. And I watched it on YouTube. And then the next night I had a friend over. I said, you need to watch this movie.
Uh-huh.
And then she loved it. And then I had a viewing. I ordered the DVD and I had a viewing for 6 people. And they all liked it. So I just I've made so many people watch this movie. It's from the early 70s.
Yeah.
And it's about a man baby. Like this family, this woman and her daughters hate men, and she's got like a 22-year-old son that they never allowed to grow up, and they just treat him like a baby.
Ah.
And a social worker comes and tries to, fix him, and it's got a really great end. Like, you can't read anything about it going in because it's got a good ending. But it's just wild, the things that go on in it, and some people were disturbed by it, I guess.
Yeah.
I also chose The Pit, which is a Canadian movie about like a boy who finds a pit with these creatures in it that he starts feeding people to that piss him off.
Woo!
It's pretty fun.
Wow.
And he's got a weird, like, creepy obsession with his babysitter.
Yeah.
And his teddy bear talks to him and tells him to do things.
Wow.
That's a good one. That's also on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube.
How do you find these movies? Like, how do you keep up and find them? The ones that you suggest?
I have a notes in my iPhone. I keep a list of ones. There were some that I had seen for years, like that I own DVDs of, just from renting movies back in the day.
Yeah.
When they had crazy covers, I'm like, oh, let me rent this. So some things still aren't streaming or I can't find.
You're right.
I'm waiting.
Nice.
But we've discovered some other ones based on, like, Amazon Prime. It'll tell you people who watched this, and we've found some real gems.
Oh, that is super fun.
Mm.
I watched the night of, it was a Jack Nicholson movie about a werewolf.
Oh, Wolf. With James Spader, right?
Yes.
And Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yes.
I did not watch that one, but I've heard they talk about it still.
Yeah, I watched that one. And I just, like, I couldn't keep up with the comments, but I did my best. Which is why I think, like, Discord is a nice place for it to land, because it's a little bit easier to keep up, I think, with a thread on Discord.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we've become a little family, the people that do it.
Yeah.
And I've been choosing some that I liked when I was younger that I don't think hold up.
Yeah.
So some of those are still on the list to watch. We'll see.
I think those are also fun to rewatch and see.
Because I rewatched, now this is probably going to be controversial for some, but Purple Rain is a terrible movie. The soundtrack is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, great soundtrack, but the movie itself, it's a terrible message. He beats this girl and she stays with him.
Oof.
And I mean, Mars Day is the only good part, but the movie itself, I don't know, it's problematic in a lot of ways. But the soundtrack
is outstanding.
Yes.
My favorite soundtrack is Prince. Was it the first Batman movie that had Bat Dance?
Yeah.
And Arms of Orion? That was, to me, like, neck and neck with Purple Rain for best Prince soundtracks.
Yeah.
I think. The other movie I had us watch that people, again, were like, truly, I wasn't allowed to pick movies for a while after this one, was Lost Boys.
I love Lost Boys.
It's so good.
Because I was a huge Corhaim fan.
Okay.
And the Lost Boys soundtrack is good.
It is.
Well.
Yeah.
I had the cassette.
We in my friend group in high school or junior high, you declared that you were Kiefer. Did you like Kiefer Sutherland or did you like Christian Slater? That was our breakdown. So I was like a Christian Slater girl. But Lost Boys, I think, gave you both.
No.
Does Young Guns gives you both? Are they both in Young Guns?
Maybe. Because Lost Boys is Jason Patric and the Coreys. And,
but Kiefer Sutherland's in it,
Gertz.
Right?
Yeah, Kiefer's in it.
Yeah. Yeah, Jamie Gertz. And then the dad from Gilmore Girls.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, is in
that
it too.
That movie holds up.
It does.
I don't know why they didn't like it.
Are there other movie podcasts that you listen to, or is How Did This Get Made your main love?
It's my main one. The only ones that I've dabbled into are only if like Jason is a guest or Paul or, like I've listened to a bunch of Doug Love's movies when
Mm-hmm.
Paul, June, and Jason or a combination have been on, but otherwise, no. I just listen to Smartless. That's my new podcast that I listen to.
Oh,
It's very good. And I've been listening to the Leah Remini Scientology
yeah.
Fair Game podcast. But otherwise, I will listen to ones where if Jason is a guest on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll listen if Paul is the guest, but it's mainly if Jason's a guest.
Yeah. I thought his Andy Richter interview was a good one.
Yes.
That was a nice one.
And his Mark Maron and his Anna Faris episodes have been really good.
Yeah, those are how, because I got to How to Get This Get Made from Gilmore Guys.
Yep.
He said something on a Gilmore Guys episode that I've never been able to find again. So maybe he didn't say it. Like maybe I conflated podcasts in my memories. But he said something about like either like the rape culture on the show, like a moment being like just too squiggy on Gilmore Girls. And I was like, who is this guy? This is really insightful. Jason Mantzoukas, who's that? Can I even spell it? And then I think I probably listened to his Mark Maron interview and maybe his Pete Holmes interviews.
Yep.
First. And then I just went like down the rabbit hole and I was in. I was like hooked. And I have a very clear memory at work. So like 3.5 years ago of being at a cocktail hour and talking about celebrity crushes. And I was like, this guy, like he's Rafi on the League. He plays like this big character over here, this big character over here. But if you listen to these podcasts, he's like really deep and thoughtful person. And they were just like, you can have him, Leah. We have no idea who you're talking about.
I think mine, like at the beginning when I first started listening to How This Get Made, was Face Off, where I was like, that was where he became my celebrity boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because he was so funny in that. And I'm like, he is so smart. And those two things put together, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm done. And then I also went down the rabbit hole, but that's when I was like, Stitcher Premium, get me this. I need every episode.
Nice.
Now, do you watch all the movies?
I do not. Do you?
It depends. I try to watch a lot of them. I usually will watch the trailer.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, no.
Right.
But when I was going back and listening to the old ones, sometimes I wouldn't. I would watch the trailer and read the Wikipedia plot summary.
Mm-hmm.
But through COVID, I've been watching some of the old movies and re-listening to it. The ones that I didn't watch before. Some I still know I won't. Like Garbage Pail Kids, that's one of my favorite episodes, but I will not watch that movie.
Their descriptions are so graphic in that episode that you don't need to watch it. Yeah.
Sometimes I will watch some of a movie and then like just give up, like the Pinocchio with Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
That was a horrible movie.
I made it through about like half an hour and then I was like, oh. Like if I didn't have to watch the ones that go live shows, I always watch.
Yeah.
But I would not have watched The Great Wall or Blood Wars had I not had to go to those shows. But I try to. Like I watched Upworld twice in 1 week. The gnome named Norm.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to watch it again. I don't know why. I loved it. But I've bought a lot of them to show to other people.
Right.
I had for my birthday during COVID, you could rent out a local movie theater and have up to 15 people wear masks, you bring a movie. So we watched The Peanut Butter Solution.
Amazing.
None of them had seen it. And then we had another one at Christmas time and I got them to vote and it was all How This Get Made movies. And we ended up watching Never Too Young to Die for that one.
Awesome. I did watch Peanut Butter Solution.
Oh, it's
So,
amazing. I didn't think I would make it through it, and then I couldn't stop watching.
yeah, because it was so weird. It was such a bizarre. That might be one where I listened to the episode and I saw what everybody was saying on Facebook and just said, I this is so bizarrely explained. I have to see it for myself. I always watch a live show. So virtual live show, real life live show. And then I write like questions on my arm. If I can get Paul's attention, I have a question. And I've never been selected for a question, but that's fine because I've had plenty of positive interactions with them. So I won't be too greedy, but I try to make sure I have like a good question. I try to have some restraint and let them be the comedians.
Right.
As I prepare for the questions I won't get to ask, you know?
And it's funny because I'm usually, like, I go to a lot of meet and greets. I go to a lot of conventions, like
Yeah.
Comic-Cons and stuff. And I'm always cool as a cucumber. Like, I don't get starstruck. They're just like people, you know? Jason, I shut down. Like, I don't know what it was because I'm usually not like that.
Yeah.
And when I went, I turned to him, like, I love you. And I was like, oh no, I didn't say that. So I just had to say something else to just like change it up. And then he was normal after that. I'm like, oh boy, what did I do? But he didn't seem to react. So that was fine.
Was that the same night? That was a different show than the one where you were wearing I Heart Jason.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause I didn't want to be the a-hole wearing that in the picture with him.
Fair. Yeah.
I didn't want to scare him.
Right.
Like meeting him in person. I tried to dress kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the super, because I think he would be the type that would be
a
little put off by that.
In my head, I'm like, could I be cool? Like, can I just have a reputation of being like a cool fan? You know, like I'm a little pedantic. During the Chicago live shows, they kept talking about how much they loved Stumptown coffee, but like Stumptown is a Portland brand, but that was being served at their Chicago hotel, so they were trying to like have all this Chicago love and kept talking about Stumptown coffee. And so I sent them a care package of coffee from like Metropolis, Intelligentsia. Like I went around the city buying coffee beans from different Chicago coffee establishments and sent a care package. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of an asshole.
No, that's great.
I'm like, well, actuallying them with food.
It's so funny. The 2 times that I've like met other celebrities that have worked with Jason, the first thing I ask is, like, I met Stephanie Beatrice at a Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, what's it like to kiss Jason Mantzoukas? And she said, very fuzzy. She said, he's a sweetheart. He's the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And then the last time I saw Greg Sestero, I said, tell me everything about Jason.
Nice.
And they both said, he's such a nice guy.
Yeah. He seems that way.
I know. I just want to like, I do hope I get that other meet and greet because I kind of want to act more normal. Be like, you know, I don't, because I'm not one of those fans that like think they know you.
Yeah.
Like I know things about you that you present in the world, but we all have like I have internet Pam and then I have the real Pam.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you know, and there are people that think, you know, this is the person. And like, it's like, you're my celebrity boyfriend, but we're all in on the joke. I don't actually think I would, you know, I don't know you. I would like to, you know, you're interesting. I'd like to get to know who you are, but I don't think I know you at all, you know?
Yeah.
But that's hard to convey in like a 2-minute interaction.
Right. Yeah. Like, I do seek out and listen to all of your podcasts, but I'm cool. I'm cool.
Right. Because I enjoy creative and funny people. And
Yeah.
that's why I like meeting people that like me because pop culture is like a huge part of my life. Like I love TV, I love movies, I love music, and I love meeting the people that like the things I make that I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you on that. And I think it's I feel like Paul, in his like COVID evolution of figuring out like what social media works for him, there was like the texting app,
Yeah.
that he was super into, and then he got Discord. And I wanted to send him an email and be like, Paul, you don't have to do everything. And then like the texting app has pretty much gone away, but like Discord, he does go in there like every day and answer questions and interact with people, and seems to have really good relationships with his moderators that he's brought on of people that were like cool in the chat, understood how Discord works. Like, I just appreciate how he crowdsources advice and then actually uses the advice.
Yes.
That is like cool to see, that there's like more of a two-way relationship, although still we don't know him, but it's nice to see someone taking their fans' advice on technical things and like actually putting it to work on Twitch. Like, that's been really interesting to me.
Yeah, and he seems to really enjoy it. Like,
yeah,
interacting with the fans, like it's not a hassle to him. He actually like seeks it out sometimes, and that's
yeah,
admirable.
It's really nice. I think a lot about, because also like at the very beginning of this podcast, I wrote, before I started the podcast, a letter about all of my podcast friends, all the people that, because I spend hours a day with people like in my ears. And years ago, when I first started blogging, so I'd only been blogging for like 4 months. So this is 2004. I went on a date with a guy in London. I started blogging. Brag. I was working in London for 5 months, and in month 4, I went speed dating. And speed dating was for like tall women and men who work too much. Like, that's all who was there. And I matched with one person, and we went on 2 dates. And on the first date, I started to tell a story, and he goes, "Oh my God, I read that on your blog. That was really funny." And I was like, oh, that was weird. For our second date, we went to, I think, the National Museum or the British Museum, the one with all the stolen artifacts. And he criticized how I went through a gallery. Like, he thought I didn't spend enough time reading the plaques. And I was like, well, I guess you're not my British husband. Like, I guess this is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But that's what I try to keep in mind when I think about, like, if I got Jason or Paul on the podcast, like, to remember, I don't want to be that guy who's like, "Oh my God, no, I read your blog. I heard that. I saw that on Twitter. That was really funny."
Right.
And to like try and keep that tamped down in order to have a conversation. I hope I can.
I was able to, get out myself here. I've been a big Hanson fan for years.
Uh-huh.
And back in like 2008, probably now, one of my friends owns like an online magazine newspaper in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And the band had contacted them to see if they would do a story about them and then review their concert. So he emailed me and was like, "Hey, do you want to come to Milwaukee?" I was like, "Yes."
Fantastic.
So I was able to do a phone interview, and my favorite is Taylor.
Okay.
The middle one, he's got the looks and the talent. So they just called. I didn't know who it was going to be, and it ended up being Taylor.
Uh-huh.
So at first on the phone, I would like, oh, because I was surprised it was him. And then I got into the group. But then I got to go out and interview them for like 20 minutes before their concert.
Yeah.
And I made a point of asking them questions that they don't normally get asked,
Mm-hmm.
because you read all the same thing in every
Right.
article. So I, asked a lot of things, and they were like really excited to get the questions, because it was a real change of, what they're used to asking,
Do you
answering.
remember some of the questions that
Yes, so I always ask who your favorite Muppet is. I
Nice.
ask everybody that, because if you say Big Bird, I'm out. But but I know I asked specific things about certain songs. They had just released like an acoustic version of their first album, and I
Yeah.
asked like why certain songs weren't on it, and who came up with this part. And I was asking what their favorite songs on each album were and stuff like that. So I think they enjoyed getting different questions
Yeah.
aside from what they would normally ask. But
And
I was able to
being,
keep it cool,
yeah.
dying inside.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I worked in PR for a long time, in public relations, not at NPR. And I was sort of at the tail end of people that were taught, like, never take a picture with never take a picture with your celebrity that you've gotten to pitch something. Like, don't post it on social media, be cool.
I'm still very upset with myself because in 2016, Entertainment Weekly had a pop fest in Los Angeles. It was like a 2-day pop culture festival. It was the first and only one they've had,
Yeah.
and I went to it, but they kept adding things to it, and they had a lot of things happening at the same times.
Mm.
So you had to like kind of get in line for the next thing, so you'd miss some things. And they had an improv, and Jason was there, Adam Pally was there.
Ah.
It was who's the guy from Veep? Matt Walsh was
Yeah.
there. Neil Flynn was there. Darcy Carden was there. It was like a who's who.
Wow.
Besser was there, and I did not get to see Jason
Oh, what a
do
bummer.
improv. So I've never seen him do improv.
I haven't seen him do improv either.
No, because I watched like the first probably 25 minutes of it, and then I had to go get in line for the next thing because they were doing Office Christmas Party, I think it was. It was either
Okay.
that I wanted to go to because I wanted to look at Jennifer Aniston and see what she
Uh-huh.
looked like. It was either that or Anna Faris was doing a live podcast with Seth Rogen. I knew there was something else. Like I
Oh,
had to
yeah.
go. But Jason wasn't my celebrity boyfriend at that point.
Yeah.
I knew who he was, but had it been a few months later, I would have been front in line in that room. But
Yeah.
that's still a regret of mine to this day.
I've got one of my friends who lived in New York, and he's been in Chicago now over 10 years. But he, a couple years ago, was like, Leah, I was cleaning things out and I found a flyer from a night when I went to UCB. And he's like, I didn't see Jason, but Jason was when Jason was doing shows every week in New York. And and he's like, I just want to let you know that I could have seen your celebrity boyfriend do improv 10 years ago. I thought you should know that. And I'm like, I'm jealous of you 10 years ago that you didn't choose to get to see him.
Oh, I know the last time I was in LA, I missed out on him because I was flying in. I got there the night he had a show.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten to it in time. So I have to plan it accordingly next time.
Yeah.
I really do want to see that.
I'm hopeful there's still at least one UCB stage left by the time it reopens.
I know.
So I'm a little bit wondering what stages will survive.
I know. Largo at this point is still alive, but
thanks to Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
So
I would like to go see a show there.
I would too. I'd like to go back.
Because when I went to the two in LA, they were at bigger theaters.
Yeah. I had some friends go to those as well. Largo was special.
Yeah.
Are there any other, when you think about like adventures that How Did This Get Made have taken you on, or things that you've learned about or done, or that you wouldn't have without having met this podcast? Is there any stories that come to mind?
It's probably just the movies that I've discovered
Yeah.
and created movie nights. I mean, before I listened to the podcast, we used to have movie nights sometimes with a group and just watch some bad movies. And this just gave me a whole new system. There's a bunch that I've just bought the DVDs of, and they're like, no, I need to make people watch this.
Yeah.
So it's probably that and the group movie watches really. And I love the gift exchange.
I love the gift exchange. I think I've got, I moved my What's Up Jerks. It's over there now, but.
Yeah, I own so many t-shirts now. So many How Did This Get Made t-shirts. I've got a What's Up Jerks phone case,
Yeah.
I have 4 mugs at work that are all related. I haven't been to the office in over a year and I miss my mugs.
Yeah.
And I have a Jason painting at the office. But yeah, and it's also made me like seek out other things that they have done.
Yeah.
I had seen Burning Love before, but I hadn't seen The League. So I went back and watched a bunch of that and some other stuff that Jason had done. But yeah, it's taken me other places.
Yeah.
To go see the show. And I've met, so many other fans, and I've gotten to introduce a couple of people to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've successfully gotten anyone into How Did This Get Made. For me, it's been the guests. Nicole Byer is someone I got to through How Did This Get Made. And then that's through Nicole, you get a whole world of comedy. And then rewatching The League or finding the movie that Casey and June wrote together.
Ass Backwards?
Is that the wedding one?
Oh, no, I know the one you're talking about.
But yeah, the other thing that I think is really unique about their podcast and having 3 people in it is then being able to track how they come in and out of each other's and how their guests come in and out of the like TV shows and movies that they make.
Right.
And realizing that it is a very connected professional network of people who seem to be lifting each other up through this career, which I admire.
Yeah, I didn't know Jessica St. Clair before this podcast, and I'm very grateful for it now.
Yes.
Yeah, but Nicole, definitely, I was like, who is this woman?
Yeah, she's amazing. She's really having a moment right now with Nailed It Back and Wipeout starting this week.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah, we went to see her do stand-up about a year and a half ago, and it was
I'm
epic.
so jealous.
It was filthy, but hilarious.
Yeah.
And she was like, sorry to the people who think I'm the woman I nailed it, but...
Right.
Because we did have, like, there were like 2 older couples next to us that left in the middle of it because it was kind of raunchy, but
yeah.
Was,
She is very much a modern day Bob Saget.
A little bit.
Who I've never seen do stand up, but I've heard is filthy.
Yes.
And America's Funniest Home Video or America's Funniest Video made everybody think, no. Was he on that?
Yeah, he hosted America's Funniest Home Videos for a while.
Right. And Full House. And so people just thought he was Mr. Clean. And then they go see him do stand up and he was like worked blue and was totally filthy. And so Nicole seems to have really captured that like rated G family friendly host and filthy stand-up comedian. And I love her for it.
I mean, I'm hoping once things, maybe next year, they'll finally tour again for How This Get Made. Because I kind of want to do like a Deadhead tour.
Yeah.
Just follow them around.
Absolutely.
But I will probably, New York I can get there in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Drive. So I would probably go to New York to see them next time if I can, in addition to Boston.
Come to Chicago.
Oh, I haven't been to Chicago in years. I'd love to go back.
Come to Chicago. We have so many so many people from the group either live here or like all the Midwestern fans came to Chicago for that show, which was so, I mean, people, the Pritchards live in Michigan. People really drove in like up to 8 hours away for that show, those shows, which was fun.
I'm very thankful that I discovered Neil Breen through How'd This Get Made as well.
Yeah.
We did a retrospective of his 5 films and the movie watch group. It was epic.
That's amazing. Is he still making movies?
Yes, he just he storyboarded his 6th film and he's looking for people to help out. He just put something out on Twitter.
Amazing.
Because Fateful Findings, that was a real special one. I'm still waiting for The Visitor because I've seen that movie twice. And where is that episode?
Was that episode recorded?
Yeah, it was recorded the same night as Fateful Findings.
Oh. Because what we haven't gotten, there was a Seattle live show that Rob Hubel was a guest at. It was like one of the only ones.
That's The Visitor.
Is that it? Okay.
Because he was the guest for that. And then there's one other one. Do you prefer the live or the in-studio shows?
Yes. I prefer live shows I've attended because I can really feel them, even though that's only like 5 shows. It's when you listen to them, you get to dive back. The wall of laughter that they can produce in a theater is overwhelming. Right. And I think to them too, like I think the first night that they had a sold out Chicago theater, which is a massive venue in Chicago, as the name suggests, you know, like the first year they came, they were in a theater that's like in a school that held maybe 1,500 people, and it sold out really fast, or maybe 1,200. And I think they felt like really good about that. Like that was a big show for them at the time. And so to get to see them react to the wall of sound and to imagine what that feels like. So I like live shows I've attended. And then I think after that, it's probably old, like true, like old school studio when they were actually together. Mm-hmm. Then live shows, then Zoom shows. But Zoom live shows, I think, go back up to the top because I attended them. So they're in that top ranking. Right. There's just something special about when they're like physically together that I like. Yeah. What about you?
I mean, like you, I like them all. But I tend to like the live shows more just because Jason seems to feed off the energy of I like when he taunts the audience and, you know, antagonizes them. Mm-hmm. But I also love in the studio episodes when they go off on tangents about stories.
Yeah.
And get the giggles. Yeah. Some of those are some of my favorite ones. So, I mean, and I've been like spending a lot of time pandemic doing jigsaw puzzles. Mm-hmm. So I just I've been going through the back catalog again, re-listening to old episodes, doing that. And
drinking
it's a mixture.
tea.
I mean, I think it depends on the movie, the guest.
Yeah.
There's really not a bad one.
There's not. How do you, when you're trying to get people to listen, what's your pitch? Or like, is there an episode that you're like, this is a good starter episode? Or like, how do you sell it to people?
I usually will give them the generic, what they do, what it's about. Mm-hmm. And then it's these people. And then you try it. You're like, you know, Brianna from Grace and Frankie. Oh, I love her. Yeah, she's on it. And then you try to explain who everybody is because they're not, a lot of times aren't name recognizable as they should be.
Right.
To most people. But yeah, I just give them, you know, they watch these bad movies and then they discuss them and it's hilarious and they get good guests and everybody sounds like, oh, that sounds great. But a lot of times they don't. I've only really converted 2 people to like regular listeners. Yeah. My brother was supposed to go with me when we were supposed to go last year, but it's a show that got canceled. And I know he would like the show. He just doesn't have time to listen.
Fair.
But he would enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that one I was mad because we canceled like a week and a half before the trip, and I watched the movie already and it was terrible. I'm still angry about it. They haven't done it yet.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten a few people to watch. They've listened to some episodes, but they're not faithful. They're not subscribers.
Uh-huh.
But I do have one that I can discuss it with. But that's why I like having the group, because you can discuss everything. There are people. There are people.
Yes.
And that's when we first started doing the group watches, and people were we watched a movie with, what's her name? No, the girl from Arrested Development that played Anne.
Oh, I'm not going to have the recall on that one.
Mae Whitman.
Okay.
So Mae Whitman was in the movie as a kid, and when everybody referred to her as Egg, I said, "These are my people." Like, it wasn't even, and no one was like, "What are you talking about? What's egg mean?" Everybody just knew. So they all seem to have like similar interests outside of the podcast as well. They get things.
Yeah. Yeah, the same good cultural references and now like insane levels of inside jokes.
Because I need people with the pop culture references. I dated a guy once and he did not know who Barbra Streisand was, and that was it. Yeah. I was out.
Did you walk out of the date at that point?
No, he was already my boyfriend at the point.
Oh.
And he was one of those people who not necessarily knew names, but would know if he saw like a picture of somebody, like Jude Law I was trying to describe once. Yeah. And then like he's in this. And then one time I just emailed him a picture of Barbra Streisand after he didn't know. He's like, "Who am I looking at?" It's like, "Oh no." I can't.
You gave him a fair chance.
Yeah.
You gave him a fair chance. Pam, is there anything I haven't asked you about that if we hung up, you'd be like, "Oh, I can't believe I forgot to tell her this thing"?
No, I think I just want everybody to listen to the show.
Yeah.
Get into it. Become a sister wife.
Yes.
But I'm first in line for Mantzoukas. Just remember, we are engaged because of a Greek thing.
Because of a Greek thing.
There is footage.
Yes. He said he loved you in front of his parents. So, yeah. No, you are engaged.
Like, I made a fake news blurb that we were engaged.
Uh-huh.
And tweeted, and How This Get Made Twitter had retweeted it, put bonkers. And there were a lot of people that responded like, "Oh my God, Jason's engaged. Like, I can't believe it." Like, it was clearly a joke.
Right.
And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I couldn't believe the people who actually thought it was real.
Right. Oh boy. That's well done. Well done. Do you want people to follow you online? Do you or anything?
If they'd like.
Okay.
If you like to see pictures of puppets and clowns.
How should people follow you?
I don't tweet much, but I am on Twitter and Instagram at Sockgirlie, SOCKGIRLIE.
Fantastic.
And a name you give yourself, well, a name you used for your email 20 years ago, you don't realize is going to define you.
Right.
So yeah, I'm Sockgirlie because I grew up with a sock monkey who I love dearly that I've had since I was 4.
Aww.
I know at this point I'm like, what would I change it to? Like, everything has like, people know to look for me as that, because I had a blog when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it was under that, and it's
how it works out. Well, this has been an absolute blast. Enjoy your Easter weekend.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This
Thanks
was great.
for letting me do this.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.